Hello and welcome to The Studio Demands It, an exercise in creative thinking where we will conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film or series or even a game, who knows, based on the demands or stipulations from one of you listeners acting as a hypothetical Hollywood overlord.
Overlord. I just can't. I got to do it.
I know, it's fine.
I love it when he does it.
I was hoping you would. Yeah. As professional screenwriters ourselves and massive cinephiles, we talk movies all the time.
All the time.
And we'd like to believe that we can meet any demand thrown at us. We'll be your screenwriters for this episode. I am TC DeWitt, and joining me for our annual crossover episode is David AZP Geisler.
I'll take it.
David, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you for having me on the show.
Welcome back to the show. Yes, our annual crossover, which we weren't sure was going to happen, but I was determined to do so.
Season 4 of Studio Demands It and Season 6 of AZP had a couple wrinkles this past summer, just with technical, just us getting things lined up. I was literally moving to a different studio, the whole thing.
Found a way. Yeah.
So I think actually, both of us like to have our seasons end kind of with the calendar year.
Yes.
AZP is going to go all the way into March right now, Season 6. God. And I think you guys are jumping into about January or something like that, maybe even February.
This will go up. I'm going to get this up fast. This one's going to get up fast,
yeah.
And then it's just waiting for the finale.
So
we'll be done before the year ends, and we're going to have at least a month off before we start Season 5, which we're going to, obviously talking inside baseball.
Yeah, I can't wait.
We'd love to start in January, so it's literally starting at the beginning of the calendar year. But we can determine the actual start date.
Well, the point is, or not the point is, I apologize. What I'm excited to talk about is that you're right. There was a moment where, well, I'll say it so you don't have to. A couple months ago, you were like, all right, Dave, let's do that crossover. And I was like, I got you, TC. I'm coming to California this time. You've come to Wisconsin or you come to Chicago twice. I'm coming to you. And then I didn't really realize at the time that I was going to have like an emergency move situation and that I was, that things are going to get real for me over the summer. Yeah. And I kind of left you hanging a little bit. And I'd kind of say, okay, I'm going to try maybe next month or this or that, TC.
It wasn't a problem.
And I'm very grateful that for you in your life, it worked out that you were able to come back to the Midwest and that we're able to do this. So even though we do this every year, for me, this is a particularly special one.
Oh, well, I love doing this. I'm a completist. I don't know. Are you a completist?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. It depends. Like, not with video games.
No, that's too hard now. Video games are achievement hunting. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I start a TV show, I'm finishing the show. If I start a movie, I'm finishing the 100%.
movie. 100%. I realized the other day I was speaking with someone. We were out to having dinner or having coffee or something, and she helped me realize that I'm a we could say consumer, but let's just say viewer of content. I consume with intent is what I realized. And meaning, like, I don't really casually watch stuff. I don't really have stuff on in the background.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
If I start a movie, I'm pretty much I'm not even checking my phone. I'm sitting down and I'm watching it for those 2 hours, and then the TV goes off, and then I go do the next thing. If I'm listening, maybe even podcasts, it's kind of like maybe while I'm traveling, but you know what I mean? There's not a lot of like layered on top of things. And so I guess in that way, if I do start watching a TV show and I like it, I can usually decide in the first episode or two if it's something I'm interested in or not. If it's not, then I stop. And if it is, I like commit to it. And I also am not a binger, by the way. I know plenty of people can do that, but I can't.
No, I force Danny. Well, when we're watching something, I will stop after an episode to digest it. To have like let's talk about let's start the next episode. I'm like, sometimes I like to just take a moment to digest.
I agree. You can, it's cool to watch all of season 5 of Community over the course of a weekend, but at the same time, or maybe even something even more narrative, because that was still kind of sitcom-y, but if it's like a proper show, or even let's just say you're going to binge through the 8 Ahsoka episodes, or just as a hypothetical or an example, like, I don't know, I appreciate having a week off to think about that episode and think about the next one coming.
I didn't realize how much I missed it until Disney Plus started doing their week-by-week Marvel stuff and Star Wars.
And honestly, that started with Hulu. Hulu was, back in the days of like House of Cards, Netflix stuff, Hulu was starting to put out some of their own shows. They did Casual, which was one they experimented with. I actually kind of like that show. It went here and there, but for the most part, I like that show. And they would do it where it would come out once a week. And so Netflix would dump their 12 episodes or 20 episodes or whatever, and Hulu was doing once a week. And I found that I really enjoyed that. So I've created a rule for myself where even if I'm quote-unquote binging a show, first of all, two light rules. never more than 2 episodes in one viewing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to check that next one out, maybe I'll,
Okay.
maybe it's like even personally inside
We'll do
myself,
one more.
like, okay,
We'll do one more.
but never more than 2.
Right.
And if it is a binge situation, at least a day. But I actually really appreciate the week. And honestly, we're adults. We have busy lives, busy schedules.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of knowing that Tuesday night is this I'm watching a show with this person I'm speaking about right now, and we are actually it's a Hulu show and it's coming out once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're busy, we've only been we got together and we watched the show, and then the next week we watch the next episode and we miss a week, so we're actually a few episodes behind,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still sticking to it. One episode once a week, you know what I mean?
It's-
Even though there's 3 of them sitting there in the queue.
But you can talk about it.
Exactly.
And like the Netflix just dropping all of Stranger Things. Sure, for about a week, Stranger Things is what everyone's talking about. But then it's that much quicker you forget about it.
Well, if we're getting critical about the Netflix model, I don't even really watch Netflix anymore, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there's some good shows on there. But that's kind of, I feel like where they started to lose their way a little bit, and this is my opinion, is this strategy of, okay, you drop your Stranger Things and everybody talks about it for 2 weeks or whatever, and then it's on to the next thing. You've got to greenlight stuff left and right, and that's what Netflix did. In the early days, Netflix was prestige, and now it's spaghetti on a wall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like whatever kind of sticks, just greenlight everything, give everything a second season, who knows, who cares? And I don't know, it gets a little foggy.
Dropping series like that, like the Netflix model was like the top of the mountain very briefly, but then everyone else like pulled, like Hulu dropping week by week was smarter, which is weird because Hulu as digital streaming existed before Netflix streaming.
It did, and it was really just streaming existing television shows, and maybe that's why they stuck to that week model.
It works, and like I said, I like the Disney model of dropping.
They do it once a week too.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that week by week episodic nature of it is, it's better. It's just maybe it's because it's classic TV style, but I feel like I don't know. I know more people who prefer that over the binge, because the binge is great when something's done. And then it's like getting the DVD box set, right?
Yeah. And even in the DVD days, this is just obviously my personality, I wouldn't quote unquote binge, even though that really wasn't a term back then. I'd watch an episode and then take the disc out. And
What a term, anyway, by the way.
Binge.
Binging.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we're going with the definition, it means consuming too much too quickly.
Yeah.
Literally.
There you go.
But anyway, this is we're accidentally having, I don't even know what show we're on now because this is a nutso intro.
This is actually perfect because this sort of ties into the episode of today. So let's get into the demand.
I think, I don't know what it is, but I think I know where it might be headed.
I think you might. So listen, our listeners have given us demands from studios literally all over the world, David. We have listeners that are across the globe. And you, listening right now, you can send us any demand you'd like, and we will have to meet that demand right here on the spot. And when we reach the end of the episode, if we've done our jobs, we will have pitched a full concept, a full script or story or season, meeting or even exceeding the demands that you have given us. And who knows? Maybe this will be such a good demand that by the end of next season, this will be the one this will be greenlit. Yeah, because like I've mentioned, or maybe I don't know if I mentioned it in the episode proper here, but for those who listening,
we were talking about in the Patreon intros.
In the intro, yeah. Our listeners get to greenlight one of our productions for our finale. Now, this is being recorded when the finale's already been chosen.
That's true.
So, just as a reminder, the finale for season 4 is coming soon. It is Mystery Inc. and the Threshold of Chaos.
It is literally in pre-production right now.
In pre-production right now. But anyhow, let's get to our demand for today. And I want to thank our extra demands coming from AZP, because you put the word out.
I threw a couple tweets out there, yeah. I didn't know how to handle this one, TC, because this is our 4th time doing this. On Studio Demands It. And I know that I kind of bring the Zelda angle. And I know that our listeners over at Another Zelda Podcast really love our Zelda-themed episodes on Studio Demands It.
Yes.
But, like, how many times can you make a Zelda thing?
Well,
we've done 2 films. We did a video game.
And I think you kind of guided the prompt by saying that. Because in the tweet you said, we've done a couple movies. We've done a game. What should we do? And I think by default, people knew what was left to do.
A bit of deduction or whatever, right?
So I grabbed a couple of the tweets. Edward from...
Eddie V from Boss Rush Network.
That's right. He tweeted at us, a Zelda comedy skit variety show. To which Josh Martinez responded, instead of saying live from New York, it's Saturday night, they say, well, excuse me, princess.
I didn't see that reply.
Yep,
That's funny.
yep. Drew Priggs tweeted a Zelda HBO Limited series, think The Last of Us. And so, yeah, I think by default, by saying, we've done a movie, we've done a game, what should we do? People were like, we'll do a show.
Make a board game. No, I'm just joking.
Jim would do that. That we could. That's a different.
I will happily spend 3 hours with Jim trying to figure out a Zelda board game.
So we had a couple of demands that had come through over the past couple seasons, but this comes from there's a tweet from Logan, and this is Handy Dandy 09 says, how about a reboot of the old Zelda cartoon? You must keep a talking Ganon, a talking Triforce. Also, Link must say, well, excuse me, princess, but you can change the tone and context of how it's said. You are free to pick the game world it is set as well.
Oh, interesting, because that 80s show, another behind the curtain, literally last night, you and I recorded our AZP crossover where we did our part 3 of Excuse Me, and we watched some of the show, but that was clearly set in the original The Legend of Zelda universe.
Yeah. Okay, so that's from Logan. Also, we got a demand from Lex, which is essentially the same demand, but just because I know people love hearing their names, and we love hearing.
We appreciate
we appreciate them for sending in demands. This is from Lex from Crate and Over a Barrel Studios. Gentlemen, my studio is ready to produce a revival of the Super Mario Super Show. And with that means every Friday we are going to have a slot of time available to produce a brand new Legend of Zelda cartoon.
Love the deep cut reference there.
The studio demands you take what little worked from the original, mostly terrible cartoon and come up with a new 13-episode season. You must have Link, Zelda, Sprite, Ganon, and the King.
Wow.
It does not need to be connected to any specific game story.
Interesting.
But it should most definitely have references to all the game stories. Consider it its own continuity, like the cartoon of the past. And yes, Link must say, excuse me, princess once per episode, but maybe not as snidely as he did in the original. Thank you. If you end up doing my demand, I discovered the studio demanded it after the Silent Protagonist episode in Season 1, and I always look forward to your annual crossover events.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So thank you, Lex. We were just talking about this last night.
Yeah.
The people who came over from AZP.
Cool.
Logan and Lex, you two should team up. You're both production companies the studios on this.
Yeah. I dare I say it, but I feel if we had to, distill this down to a one-sentence elevator pitch, they're asking for a reboot of the 1980s cartoon.
Reboot of the 89 cartoon, yes.
Yeah.
So, and I specifically like what Lex said here, which is keep what works. There's not a lot that works.
But we found some things.
But we did find some things. And, okay, so we have to pitch and come up with a miniseries, a 13-episode, a multi-episode Zelda cartoon series.
And we'll keep it as a cartoon, not live action. I think I'm cool with that.
Yeah. So whereas there was the demand for like a Last of Us HBO limited series, there's
intriguing.
There's certainly something to that. I think Breath of the Wild, the more recent games, I feel are much more serious. They feel more mature.
Definitely the storytelling is maturing, and what I mean by maturing, not meaning like adult content, but more all the characters are well-rounded. There's nuance now.
It's so much more vast of a story being told because this is such a rich mythology.
I literally, TC, just as we were getting set up, I was perusing some tweets actually, and I saw one where there was one of the other Zelda. There's a lot of Zelda podcasts out there, I just got very distracted. I was going to do this whole thing with this gentleman named Gally, who goes by Gallytrad. But anyway, I saw a quick tweet where there was an interview with one of the creators for Breath of the Wild, and this person was just reporting it. But one of the story writers was actually admitting that they felt that the Zelda in Breath of the Wild was the most dynamic Zelda they had ever written so far, and actually noted that even if it's not super obvious in the storytelling, that when they were conceiving her character, they kind of had it in their head canon that was that me? I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Oh yeah, I'm getting messages.
Unprofessional.
I'm getting messages on the camera.
Yeah.
That Zelda even considered if it was worth saving Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, which is awesome.
That's wonderful, complex storytelling, and I love sitting down and really dissecting, especially with someone who knows more about it, such as you, the lore and mythology of Link and Zelda and the whole adventure and the whole saga of these games. Now there's multiple continuities, and you always enlighten me on something that I'm not aware of.
I'm learning along the way too.
Yeah.
Like we're 6 seasons into Another Zelda podcast. In season 1, if someone would have asked me, "What's your favorite?" I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm muting everything.
If someone had asked you,
do you know what it is? It's one message and it's hitting all the things.
Yeah.
So I'm just do not disturbing everything right now. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
If someone would have asked me, "What's your favorite video game?" It would have been Zelda. There, literally everything's on do not disturb. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. I'll probably ding now.
I'm a professional. But now what's happened is the community, the listeners, that's why we do all our listener feedback in the top of our episodes. They keep they're even helping me learn more about Zelda. It's just so cool. It's just so cool. So at this point, yeah, I would never consider myself a Zelda lore expert, but I am getting into that space where I feel like it's my main lore that I like to think about.
Yeah, like being able to have lengthy conversations about it and learning of the complexities of the mythology. Like I learned a lot when we did Zelda 3000, which was in season 3 of Studio Demands It.
Yep.
We did, as a reminder for those who might not know, we did a crossover where we conceptualized a game set in a cyberpunk-like future.
Yep.
And Ocarina of Time was my Zelda.
Yep.
That and Majora's Mask, Nintendo 64, played those to completion multiple times.
Right.
Love those games. When the GameCube came out and did Wind Waker,
and then Twilight.
Wind Waker, different animation style. I didn't have a GameCube.
Yeah.
So it was like, I grew up reading comics, so it was like a new artist took over Superman.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, I read this Superman. Dan Jurgens was my Superman artist. I'm not going to start, Carlos Paccio's great, but not my artist.
Fair enough.
So with Wind Waker, it was like, nah. And so I didn't know anything about Wind Waker until we did Zelda 3000,
right.
And we're able to use that as sort of our anchor point for our game. And I was like, whoa, it's Hyrule and flooded and all that. And
then even after our Zelda 3000 episode, I got supportive feedback from some of our AZP listeners that said, it wasn't like actuallys, but it was like also on New Hyrule there was this kind of creature, and like you could have worked that in. Or this. It was so cool. Even I was learning stuff as we were going. It was very cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, doing headcanon, fan casting, fan fiction, Zelda stuff is there's a lot to draw from, and it's a community that I feel is much more open to that and forgiving of that than some other nerdy communities.
Well, and there's something to be said about that, because it's convenient that the series is called The Legend of Zelda, and I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this in person, TC, but it's common knowledge with Zelda fans, but the original title of the game was the Hyrule Fantasy. That was going to be the name of the series.
Yeah.
The Hyrule Fantasy, and then there was going to be multiple fantasies in Hyrule. And the first game was about saving this princess named Zelda. And that was going to be it, one and done. Then new characters, new whatever. That was what they were conceiving in the beginning. Miyamoto's kind of talked about this. They were like, let's make this first one, and then we'll figure it out from there. But we're going to create a universe, kind of like creating the Mushroom Kingdom, and it'll be just the Hyrule Fantasies.
Wow. Okay.
However, when The Legend of Zelda, what we now know as the original Legend of Zelda, was in, so The Legend of Zelda was the subtitle, and in the instruction manual for the Japanese book, it is still the subtitle.
Wow. So it's still Hyrule Fantasy.
The Hyrule Fantasy is The Legend of Zelda.
Incredible.
As they were making it, Final Fantasy, the first one for Nintendo, came out.
Oh.
And, I'll say it this way. I'm paraphrasing, and it's slightly inaccurate, but marketing was like, you cannot also have a game called Fantasy.
You're going to confuse people.
Yeah, you can't do Hyrule Fantasy. And they were like, well, okay, let's switch it. Legend of Zelda. Oh, maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe the Japanese book is Hyrule Fantasy is still the subtitle, where obviously when in the American one, we don't even, it's not even in there. It's just The Legend of Zelda. I think the Japanese box art and book is The Legend of Zelda, the Hyrule Fantasy, or something like that. So the idea that we even have all these different Zeldas and all this stuff is, even that naming convention. The big joke is like, oh, Zelda's the one in the green tunic.
The green tunic and the hat.
And The Legend of Zelda. But kind of, originally, that was going to be chapter 1 or whatever, and it was going to be that story about Zelda and then move on from there.
Yeah, be something else.
Obviously, it's completely changed, and I'm so grateful it has. But furthermore, the Legend of Zelda. Maybe they walked into it by accident, but when you're dealing with legends, it means you don't, and I don't think this was by design, but I think it's convenient, you don't have to worry about super strong continuity.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about,
where does this fit into the?
Yeah.
This is contradictory to this over here.
It's
like
fun to do timeline stuff with Legend of Zelda. Pardon me, but and even Nintendo's has done their things of trying, the 3 different timelines, all that stuff, and it is pretty much universally accepted now that kind of Breath of the Wild is in one way or another bringing those 3 timelines back together. But what you have to do with the Zelda games is you have to look at each one of them as a legend.
Yeah.
And legends are based in some truth. And so there might be a canonical timeline, Legend of Zelda timeline, but because they're definitively legends, if we're going to lean into that word, it means that they have been told through the generations, they've been amplified in some ways and diminished in some ways, they've been altered in some ways. So the fact that continuity doesn't always line up, even though Nintendo, as a meta point here, Nintendo always says whenever they make a Zelda game, even Tears of the Kingdom, they make a game mechanics first, game system first, and then they figure the story out later. Even in Breath of the Wild, they were figuring out Zelda. Katie and I just did a behind the scenes Breath of the Wild episode a few episodes ago in season 6, and the development team was very candid about saying, nah, the first 2-3 years it was just make a good game and then we'll figure the story out later. And in fact, based on the mechanics, what kind of story can we build?
Sure.
So story is not number one when it comes to Zelda games.
To the games,
Lore lovers may not love to hear that, and I think exploring that lore is awesome, but for me, you have to do it in the context of legends, literally.
I love that. And for crafting a show with that in mind, and we'll give credit to that 89 cartoon where it's due. The idea that it's not 100% one for one the game continuity or the game story, that they just chose their own way to tell it. I think that's a way to approach something like this. Like if we're going to sit here right now and try to craft a cartoon, I don't think it's necessary. I think it was Logan who said we could pick one of the storylines of the game.
Well, I want to interrupt you for a second because I did a little bit of extra research last night after we recorded our, part 3 episode for AZP.
Yeah.
And I found out that that cartoon it was considered, the writers considered it to be canonically between The Legend of Zelda and kind of existing during The Adventure of Link, which is Zelda 2.
Zelda 2, yeah.
However, or maybe even before, but more importantly, let's instead of making it too big, the cartoon, when it was being written, even though it's not considered canon now, was considered to be a canonized sequel to the first game.
Ugh.
So that's why Link is living in the castle.
Oh, because he's already previously saved her.
He's the Legend of Zelda, the first game, has happened, and this is the after that story.
There's like fractured fairy tales of like Once Upon a Time Later, or where it's like the true story of the 3 little pigs or whatnot.
Yeah.
Where it's and someone's done like there's an art series of drawings of Disney princesses later and how like they're overweight or balding or what have you.
Okay.
And the idea that Link from the original gold cartridge, The Legend of Zelda, then who we can't hear in the game, right, is that prick.
I mean,
it's very amusing to me
yes.
to be like, hey, what do you think this character sounds like? Probably like a hormonal 20-something who is constantly harassing the princess for a kiss, and she's like, geez, I let a guy save me and move in, and suddenly he's got all these annoying demands.
Right. And I don't think I am assuming that Nintendo didn't have much to do with that creative direction, that choice.
So. Yeah.
I think it was just the people writing it made those choices, and maybe they had their reasons, and maybe there was more television that was in that tone at that time that we don't even realize anyway. I would say that it's not in great taste by today's standards.
No.
But the reason I did this research as I was going to bed last night is because I didn't actually speak to this in our episode. There was a moment where he said in like episode 9 of this show, gee, now that I'm living in the castle, not having adventures. And that's when I was like, wait a second, that pinged me. And that's why I researched it. And so it's after the first game, and these are the continued adventures of
that
Link and Zelda.
Well, I don't know. Like if let's talk about this new cartoon we're going to craft here.
Okay.
I like the idea of it just starting. We don't have to see an origin of how they get together. Let's jump in
Peter's already been bit by the spider.
Yes,
Okay.
midway through the adventure, that they just let's just figure out is.
Well, the reason I brought this up too
Yeah,
is
okay.
do this is a pretty easy yes or no question. Do we have the show be a canonical sequel to one of the games? Is it what happens after? If we're trying to stick to that.
Here's where I think no.
Yeah.
It's because then we have to pick.
Well, for me, it was a no as well.
Yeah.
And I think at the time when the cartoon was made, there was just one game. I mean, there was
Right.
kind of two, but there was just one game, and that's just what you do. What happens? Kids have played the game. Now they're going to go watch the cartoon.
Right.
That's what you do.
Like, how do we pick? Like, there's going to be a different opinion of which, and that goes to like doing a Legend of Zelda movie. Ocarina of Time was the one we ended up picking and crafting most of it around.
And then when we did the second movie, we had to go multiverse because what the heck else do you do?
Exactly. Yeah. So that would be what we did with Dan. Yeah, we multiversaled it, and I think in this case it'd be best to pick a non-continuity, non-game, and just use them as the archetypes. And I think even the premise of the existing cartoon that it's in Hyrule. Ganon has previously threatened the kingdom and is now threatening again.
Okay.
Or villains are. Ganon,
Sure.
Ganon I think, is... our cartoon should be a little better in terms of like an actual arc to the season.
I want to note when that cartoon came out, Ganondorf did not exist as a concept yet.
Wow.
So Ganon
Yeah.
was just Pig Monster Ganon.
Pig Monster Ganon.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a looming threat that we build up to.
Okay.
I think that Link, the hero, whether he's the hero of time, is to or what have you.
Yeah.
That Link is her knight and sword wielding hero. That they work together. Maybe instead of living in the castle, he lives in the like in Hyrule, like in the castle, not like the next room over is what I'm saying. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like he has his own tower in the back acres or what have you.
I mean, a little fun fact here with Breath of the Wild, he gets his own house in a neighboring village. And in Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda has moved into that house. Just saying.
Aw.
It's very cute.
But as far as like the setting is, an adventure has occurred. We don't have an origin of how these two met. They know each other. She is ruling the kingdom, or is her dad is ruling the kingdom, and she's Princess Zelda and preparing for what's her legacy, what have you. And threats among the kingdom require a hero. And something that I also think the cartoon did right is Zelda is very active in all the adventuring.
Yeah, that's something we talked about, where either by design or by accident, probably by design, Zelda was tremendously more active and proactive in the cartoon than she was in games for decades.
Yeah, she's not just giving the missions.
Right.
She's not just kidnapped and needs to be rescued. She is actively involved side by side with Link with a different weapon set. He's got his sword. She's using her bow and arrow.
And she was using the canonical light arrow, which was super cool. But, I mean, it wouldn't be until almost 10 to 15 years later where Zelda started becoming an active participant in the video games. So, weirdly, that was like a very progressive part of the show.
Well done, show. You get that.
I think I actually have been thinking about this a little bit. I think with that show, probably the concept was, yeah, Link's always trying to get a kiss because that's like 10-year-old currency. Like that's what, it's like, what is a little kid's version of romance and excitement and all of that kind of stuff? It's like, get a kiss. Okay, fine. Even if I'm not endorsing 10-year-olds going around kissing each other, but I guess when you're watching a show, it feels elevated. It's like, ooh, someday I'll be a teenager and I'll kiss someone.
Yeah.
But probably they were thinking, well, Zelda's so empowered that it's okay if Link is. We keep saying inappropriate, and by today's standards it is, but maybe more like, oh, he's so annoying, he just always wants to get that kiss. But if Zelda is not a victim and is active, then maybe it's a little more tolerable, and that's probably where they were going with that.
Well, for this new show, then, I have a pitch to consider.
Okay.
Instead of them being young adults, why not make them adolescent? That this is a cartoon series of not kids per se, but if they are 13 years old, as opposed to adults.
Sure.
It's their young quests, their young adventures.
Interesting.
Instead of
Well, because the question I have for you is this a reboot or a soft reboot? And what I mean by that, I'm not trying to be clever, but what I mean is like, is the marketing department asking for the nostalgia bait of let's take that 1980s cartoon and remake it? Because that's kind of what those two demands felt like to me a little bit.
Yeah.
Or is it just make a new Zelda show?
Well, Logan's wordage was reboot.
Yeah.
And Lex's was a revival.
Wow. Okay.
So
for me, that feels like
a brand new Legend of Zelda cartoon. That's her wordage.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't think it should. I think we should just pick and choose whatever we want. But
Okay.
My suggestion of them being younger is to skew this for a younger audience.
Okay.
That if it's the Super Mario Super Hour, and you can disagree with me if you think they should be.
I think I like
more
where this
adult.
is
It's just the idea of characterization.
going.
Having them teamed up, working together to fight the smaller threats of Hyrule that are building up to bigger threats. And I certainly don't want to go chibi Teen Titans Go here. I'm not suggesting that.
Got it.
I'm suggesting more something like Over the Garden Wall, if you're familiar with
I'm
that.
not familiar with it, no.
Dude, I'm making this a blanket recommendation.
Yeah.
It's a miniseries. It is so sweet, and it's got so much heart to it, and it's got this whimsy to it. It's
Cool.
It's a wonderful cartoon series.
Wow. I won't binge it starting tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, it's so easy to watch too. Like
Yeah.
it's anyway. Having a younger Link and Zelda who go out together and deal with whatever the adventure of the day is, and figuring themselves out. Where Link in the cartoon we have is very like, I know what I'm doing. I got my sword. And he's backflipping and doing all these. And
Yeah.
he's really cocky about it.
I always say he was a rude dude with a cool attitude. And
Yes,
that was kind of the
that's-
90s thing, or 80s.
Oh.
This was just late 80s, I think.
For
but yeah.
sure. For sure. A very much a rude dude with
Like, I'm surprised he doesn't have rollerblades.
oh my god. A couple years later, if the show had kept going, I'm going to offer a characterization of Link being shy.
Interesting.
Like
well,
being-
okay, we lean into the not talking so much
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
I love this.
So then it's not like, oh, Link, you did this. Excuse me, princess. It's a little more like, excuse me, princess. Like
Yeah.
soft-spoken Link.
Yeah.
That he is a man of action.
Oh, I love this.
That Link is when it comes down to swinging the sword and the heroics,
Uh-huh.
he can't help himself but naturally achieve those things that he's very good at. But then when it comes to actually, hey, let's talk to the people, like I'm not much of a talking to people kind of guy.
It is canon. In Breath of the Wild, Zelda has a diary entry where she speaks to the fact that Link in game doesn't. It's not meta, but she just says like he's soft spoken. He doesn't speak much, and I can tell it's because he has the weight of Hyrule on his mind.
Yeah.
And so I think that's okay. And I don't even as I'm hearing you say this, my instinct is to say that yeah, okay, fine, shy. Like I think he's if I don't know how to say this, TC, so help me out here, but like I don't think I would be excited about a version where it's not that he's awkward around Zelda, which is not what you were saying. He's very comfortable around Zelda. He actually loves being around Zelda and enjoys it.
Yeah.
But it's the weight of the responsibility. I don't want it to be like depression where it's looming over him. How do we do this?
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that this is something that weighs on him heavily.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
And also another reference, stylistically, tonal point that I would point to is Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series, and how that starts between its 3 seasons. It's very fun and you smile and laugh through that first season, and then the complexity of it grows until you get to that third and final season. That's the sort of tone I'd love to go with something like this, which
I like
is
this.
It sort of has a wider appeal because it can be cute and fun, but also when you really look at the subtext of everything that's happening. So to speak to the Link point,
Okay.
yeah, he's not weighed down by all this responsibility. He actually thrives going out there and swinging his sword and adventuring.
Which weirdly lines up with the cartoon. That was one of our positive notes
That's
last
right.
night.
That he does competently fight. It's more of just like he doesn't see himself as a leader. Zelda's
Okay.
the leader.
Yeah.
He's the brave knight. He's not the spokesperson for anything. He's very much not. He's like I think it's not a silent protagonist, but it's just that his voice isn't his weapon, and it is not his strength.
And it's not his tool.
His
yeah.
actions are.
Yeah.
So it's and I definitely
this.
agree that it shouldn't be depressing. So,
Yeah.
oh, I hate it. No.
What I yeah. Yeah, we're good. We're good with that. I love it. I was going to circle back around the whole thing, but I think we've got a good base there. Yeah.
Because then it allows they complement each other so well that she's the voice of the people, that she even can talk them out of trouble. Like if, for example, if we're going to play them a little younger, and the king in this is like Zelda, you need to prepare to be a princess and a leader and follow a little Princess Jasmine-esque. She wants to get out of the castle and see the world, experience the world, get her hands dirty.
And also, by the way, in many of the games, the a mega or a macro theme that we could use with the king's relationship to Zelda is not just you need to be ready to be princess, but usually there's like a foretold coming of evil.
Yes.
And Zelda it's been prophesized that Zelda's the one way or another that'll be the one that can like stop it. So there's a little bit of this like, okay, yes, just prepare to be a princess, but also like the kingdoms really truly rely on you. That's very heavy in Breath of the Wild, but those tones of that in the other Zelda games as well.
That's great. I think that is something that should be clear within this as well, that the king is preparing her for what she's going to have to do, and in that she's always ready for it.
Yeah,
she's waiting for it. Like they keep telling me to prepare for this. Let's go get this. That maybe that's what's going to initiate this. If so, she has a little more
cool.
Desire to speed to that as a character trait. Not looking for trouble, but ready for it.
Well, I love that you just said not looking for trouble, but it is the what is the active choice version of that, right? Like preparing, training, I don't know. Well,
yeah, because like and speaking of like references to other games, that could be part of it. She could have who are the Sheikahs who train her?
They do. Yeah. They do. That didn't exist yet in the 80s cartoon, and we kind of I think we're cool with having it be not necessarily just the 80s cartoon.
We can reference any game.
Okay, all right.
And I'm making a suggestion of a reoccurring character of someone training Zelda.
Essentially, well, probably that should be Impa, which is like her nurse.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Impa is the one sort of giving her physical training. And
I also think that what we're starting to build here is just like many of the Legend of Zelda games, which are legends. I think we're doing a new own story. Maybe it's somewhere vaguely in the timeline, but I don't think we're gonna like.
Yes.
It's not the Ocarina of Time castle.
No,
it's not the Twilight Princess Odin Village or whatever.
I agree that this is its own continuity with references to anything we want to pull from. So that way we're not worrying about contradicting or whatnot. It's more of an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also means that we're kind of leaning into some of the more classic Zelda stuff. If this were a ride going into Universal Studios, they'd probably want it to be the Breath of the Wild style universe, but I think we just ignore all that.
Yeah, this is in the complaint would be like, this is really just Link and Zelda in names only. Like, yeah, that's the idea, that it's its own thing.
I think we can fix that. I think if we can identify enough of the pinpoints that are part of the story beats and character beats, because like Impa is a very much important character in many of the Zelda games, and she is completely re-realized every time.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's a 100-year-old woman, sometimes she's a teenage fighter warrior, sometimes she's both, sometimes she's all over the place. She was just like a middle-aged lady in the first couple games, just like a legit nurse.
Right.
So I think if we, not name drop, it's not fan service, but if we can hit some of these beats appropriately, I don't think there would be an issue.
I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love Impa to be her swordsmith or her sword trainer, or her teaching her how archery or whatnot.
Yeah. I have another instinct, and you mentioned this when we were discussing one thing that would be interesting about the original show is if you couldn't help but notice last night that the Triforce in game in the original Legend of Zelda breaks up into 8 pieces, and boy, that's a great episode structure for a season where you go get a piece each episode or whatever.
Yes.
I would actually like to try to do that with this show, and then we risk having it be Monster of the Week, but I think we can do both.
I don't think Monster of the Week is a bad idea. I would actually lean into that.
Dungeon of the Week?
Dungeon and or Monster of the Week, I think, is a great formula for a cartoon series like this.
Yeah, and if you could somehow have whatever the monster is or whatever the dungeon is a metaphor for a lesson learned as well, not go too heavy-handed with it.
Yes.
Maybe Zelda or Link need to make an active turning point choice, or maybe it's even like relative. Maybe it's not the I need to push the button or I need to put the sword into the dragon. Maybe that happens, but it's because of a certain character realization or character beat.
Yeah, a little bit of exploration thematically, motifs of courage, wisdom, and strength.
Sure.
And that if those are the reoccurring lessons of like what lesson can you learn about what true wisdom is, what lesson can you learn about what true courage is,
and then it's what is true power at the end, because of course that's the Ganondorf one, that's the risky one, that's the scary one.
Yeah. And so if it's a monster of the week, weapon of the week, creature of the week kind of thing, dungeon of the week, like I think that imagine an episode of a water temple. But which one? Okay, which water temple? Let's take the water temple. I think it would be a new one,
right? But
which references will be like, oh, that's because something that you're able to do in watching the cartoon that exists is, oh, that's a rope.
Yeah,
look at that.
We were like,
they did a rope.
The original cartoon's really good about using the actual names for bad guys, the actual sound effects, and for the most part, kind of really like even honoring how those baddies behave.
Yeah. So I'm suggesting that in the episodes, whatever our monster or dungeon of the week has a bunch of references to it. So, I just thought of another reference point would be the original Dragon Ball, which was a lot of adventuring dungeon monster of the week sort of storytelling.
Okay.
But the overall idea that the Triforce has been broken and scattered around Hyrule, could there be a contrivance that Zelda wants to go retrieve all the pieces, and the king is like, we've lost it, don't worry about it?
Well, I think we have it be the Triforce of Wisdom, which is the thing that breaks, which is basically Zelda's part of the Triforce. And it might have even been Wisdom in that first game. I always forget which one it actually is, because weirdly there was only 2 back then. And I think maybe power didn't exist yet. Maybe it was just Wisdom and Courage. That one gets a little murky for me, I have to be honest. But if for us, Zelda is aware that she in one way, either tangibly or abstractly, has the Triforce of Wisdom, and that is what does break into literal pieces to collect, I'm okay with that. I think it's great, because that's our inciting incident.
Yeah, and let's I'm going to throw this pitch out too.
Yeah.
If she breaks it, or her and Link, something occurs where it's shattered and spread everywhere, and the king doesn't know.
Interesting. I'm not against that.
And so then they essentially have to sneak out to go find, we found, I think there's a piece, this creature's doing something rather weird over here in the valley.
Yeah.
It might be one of the pieces. Well, let's go. So she's essentially, they have to sneak out to go kind of rescue pieces around the kingdom, without the king finding out that his
I'm fine with that.
broke the Triforce of Wisdom.
It would help us as a mechanic. It would help us very easily actualize his pressure he's putting on her. Instead of just monologues from the king, it's like we're sneaking around. It's a little bit easier for a kid to process than subtext. You know.
Yeah, and I think that's a fun contrivance. Maybe we are looking more at a pilot episode where the first episode is the shattering of it, and looking for it.
I think it would be fun if it's going to be Ganon coming back, and maybe it is Ganon, not even Ganondorf. Ganon's coming back. Maybe there's a ripple. Maybe in that first episode there's a ripple of something. There's a whatever. There's a warning sign of something. Maybe Zelda, in the original cartoon, the Triforce is like on a pedestal. Fine. Yeah. But in the later games, it was mostly realized as glowing triangles on these characters' hands. Zelda, let's just say Zelda's Triforce or Zelda's hand gets a little weird. Something happens. Maybe we could even have a character introduce this quickly. Maybe not. But she learns. Okay, here we go. The king knows of the prophecy of what we would know as to be Ganon coming down the line.
The evil is coming.
The evil's coming.
Never named, never said.
You got to figure it. And the prophecy, Zelda says that it's going to be you that takes care of it.
Yeah. A viewer would go, it's Ganon.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But in the show, they never say.
And we could even maybe have fun with having like a red herring villain in the middle, which like what some of the games do. But anyway, so Zelda has known this her whole life. She's been taught this, quote unquote, in school, in her homeschooling that she gets at Hyrule. but maybe our thing that happens here is like her Triforce gets weird, feels weird, whatever. She gets a message, I don't know, but something ethereal, and she wonders if that's part of the thing, and so she tries to make an active choice to do something to the Triforce. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's a spell. She doesn't really do. Well, she does have some magic, actually. Okay. She has like a little bit of teleportation magic and stuff, which she uses in Smash Brothers. But I think what I'm trying to see here is she pokes the beast. Is what I'm trying to do by accident.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, let me just say it this way. Oh gosh, the Triforce is shaking. Let me do my thing to stop it from shaking because that's a little scary and it's weird. Maybe this is the thing, and it pokes the beast and it. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And then boom. All right. And then it's don't tell Dad.
Yeah.
Let's go get the things. I think this is an okay way to start.
Yeah.
I'm being very vague because I don't really know how to put it together.
But I think that works. I think that if it's an incidental shattering of it, and then Link, I need your help.
Yes.
Whatever you want.
Link is already her assigned knight. Let's do.
Yep. They've already had an adventure. Whatever that adventure was, it isn't quite clear.
Well, how about this?
Okay.
How about even Link is still in growth? Because there's a thread with all Zelda games where Link starts out not wanting to be a hero and then ends up becoming a hero. Mm-hmm. However, sometimes in some Zelda games, he's appointed as Zelda's knight from an early age. Okay. Even like in Minish Cap, they are very much children, and he has been assigned to be her knight. However, he has to train and grow his skills as she grows.
Let's do that.
You know?
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
So Link maybe hasn't fought. Maybe he's just out there, hunting geese, little bats and stuff like that. Or he's at the castle doing his training, sword fighting, because there's always sword fighting elements in the beginning of these Zelda games where he's learning new moves. But he probably hasn't gone against an Octorok yet. Or you see where I'm going with this?
I love this. Yeah. That they are both at the beginnings of their adventures. So there hasn't been a Legend of Zelda gold cartridge game that took place before these events.
Yeah.
We're being dropped into this world where the princess knows that one day she'll be responsible for some sort of grand prophecy, and Link is a training protector.
He has been assigned to be her lifelong knight.
Yeah. And so they're both learning in the process. The Triforce has been shattered. A way to detect. I have a notion for how to initiate the each episode of there's a thing that's been detected, having some sort of cold open that shows us what the monster will be. If we open with the monster or whatever the location and or thing is going to be, and then the sprites are the ones that detect it and come to Zelda and go, listen, Zelda.
Oh, interesting.
And so that because one of the demands was we have to keep Sprite involved.
And Sprite is interesting because Sprite is a fairy, which in Ocarina of Time was realized as a fairy named Navi, of course.
Yes.
And Sprite in the show, they're really there's fairies in that first game, but they're the ones that just help heal Link.
Yes,
they're definitely not a companion character yet, though in the show she's kind of a companion character.
She's a little Tinkerbelly.
Tinkerbelly, yeah, that's a good point. And also, so Sprite doesn't exist canonically in any games at all. Not that doesn't mean we can't use her. We could just have it be another fairy, and we could just, for the fun of it, have her name be Sprite.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
That it is fairies or a fairy who and kind of
and let's put it with a Y, right? Spryte or something whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's dumb.
And to work with the theme of these are young, they're in their younger years, and we'll build up to that. The fairy that is assigned to relay messages is also new at this as well.
I love that. I love that very much. I think we can lean into the ha. Here we go.
Okay.
Link in Ocarina of Time was, adopted by the Kokiri and whatever, and he that was a kind of an interesting story thing where it was the kid that just didn't belong in that town, and he didn't know why. Well, guess what? It's because he's Hylian, not Kokiri, whatever. However, in our version right now, I think we're building a version where Link is quite present in Hyrule, and of course in Hyrule Castle. We are queuing off a little bit of Minish Cap there. So he would not have the knowledge or lore of a fairy assigned. Mm-hmm. So what if we kind of play with this a little? What if in that first episode, a fairy comes? Okay, I guess we call it Sprite.
Or Navi.
Well, yeah, right. And actually, I kind of like it being a different name, because then there's Tattle and Tingle and other fairies and other games that are called different things. And that might be a fan service name, Sprite. That's cool.
Yeah, fairy shows up.
Well, fairy shows up, and I would like to do a thing where I'm reversing it a little bit from Ocarina, and I'm trying not to be too clever, but Link. So there are some Zelda games where Link is not Hylian. In Twilight Princess, he comes from a different town, and you don't actually really know about this until you read the comic books. But he didn't grow up in Hyrule Castle or anything like that. Yeah. We do have a Link that's great in Hyrule Castle. Maybe this fairy comes and speaks to Link and Zelda. Oh, okay. Triforce breaks apart. In a video game, it would be a map with 9 dots on it, 8 dots on it, whatever. I don't know what our story version is. Maybe it's these cold opens you're talking about. But I think our character that can, instead of literally going to a visual map in the show, our sprite character can be the dialogue version of the.
Yes.
Okay. Triforce breaks apart. It sends ripples through the ether of whatever. The fairies feel this. Maybe we even throw a Deku tree in there.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
There are many versions of Deku trees. There's Mako trees, Deku trees, all the stuff we could. That would be one of these pinpoint staples. A Deku tree feels it, assigns sprite. All the different fairies in the thing says, "Listen, I know he's not Kokiri, but he's it's you now." So she goes to the castle to let him know, and he doesn't even know what it is.
What are you? Oh,
yeah. Fairy's there.
Get out of my face.
And she says, I've been assigned to you. So now you can also have Link. Not only do we have this relationship with Link and Zelda, but you can build a friendship with Sprite and Link throughout the 12 episodes.
Yes, yeah. So it's essentially they're the 3 main characters.
Yeah. And she's our exposition person a little bit, and that's fine.
Yep. She's because these Zelda and Link have not experienced some of the creatures we're going to be out there experiencing. Our Sprite here is the one to be like, that is a blank.
Right. And it would be even more fun. I loved this thing you said a few minutes ago about how Sprite is also kind of new at this or young. Completely competent. I don't want her to be incompetent, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, this is my first time doing this. I really don't know how to turn this thing, or I don't know.
Very competent.
Very competent, but new.
Yeah.
This is her first thing. She's taking it seriously, but maybe she knows what, like I said earlier, an Octorok is, but maybe she hasn't actually seen one yet.
Yeah, that's an Octorok. I've never seen one in person before. They're a lot bigger than I thought they'd be.
Stuff like that would be kind of fun. And so all 3 of our characters are now they're equipped, they're capable, but they're learning together as well.
Yes. I love that. I love that. And having the structure of the episode be first we break the Triforce, I guess, in our first episode is where we have the shattering of it.
And I love that it's a deep cut to that first game.
Yeah. And getting them out into the adventure proper. But then going forward, our episodes that follow we open up with, this is where we're going to go in this episode.
Yeah.
And then we go to the kingdom of the castle. We go to the castle. We either start with Zelda or Link for the episode, and then Sprite says, "Okay, this is where we're going.
Yep.
Let's go," and then they venture forth.
It could even be that the Deku tree can kind of feel these powers and communicates to Sprite, and Sprite then is the one communicating. And sometimes the Deku trees, different trees in different games, can even communicate telepathically. Sure. Gamey-wamey stuff, but that's fine. Let's go. Let's lean into it. And maybe the Deku tree is keeping Sprite informed, and that's how they get their assignment.
Yeah, and that's essentially the format of the episodes.
Yeah.
I'd break from that format a couple times.
I think we can numerically.
Yeah, because there's going to be 13 episodes to play with. We only have 9 pieces.
Yeah, well,
so
I think actually, honestly, 8, if I may. If we want to do if we want to go hardcore first game, I think it's 8. Pardon
8.
me.
You're right, 8. So then there's a couple extra episodes in there to not be Triforce related.
You have the side quest in the town episode.
Absolutely. I would love one of those side quests to be a farm with aliens being
You go full Majora's.
Full Majora.
And maybe it'd be fun if there's a little bit of a quick help the chickens get in the fence.
Something like that. So, but what I'd like to discuss, we're going to take our break real quick here.
Okay.
When we come back, what I'd like to discuss is our Creatures of the Week.
Sure.
And ultimately, what this is building to at the end of this season is the appearance of Ganon.
I think so.
So let's going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to be talking bad guys.
I think we've built something here. I think we have a nice little machine built here.
There's a fun. This is definitely working in television writing formula, especially for children's television. I don't want to say children's television because I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is the best example of it's for kids, but it's not. It's for all of us.
It's for all of us, yeah, right? Yeah. Which is different than putting adult jokes in kid shows.
Exactly. Yeah. This is not. It's not intended to be that. This isn't specifically skewed towards children.
It's for all of us.
It's for the adventurers.
Which one might argue, and they wouldn't have to argue hard. All Zelda games are that.
That's right.
All right.
Cool. All right. We're gonna take a quick break here, and here's some messages from do you think?
It's probably going to be me talking about returning student. It's probably going to be, I don't even know. Probably going to be, maybe I'll throw an AZP one in there, but anyway.
All right, we'll be right back. All right, so we're back. Hello, welcome. Welcome back to Hyrule and the adventures set forth by these two characters. I have a pitch for the title of this.
Really?
Because I kept screwing this up last night.
We're going to do it?
So why not lean into it? But actually, one step further, what about calling this show The Adventures of Zelda and Link?
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Just by title alone would immediately set it apart. Like just
I'm
sliding
not
over a
against
little
this.
bit.
I kind of like it, and you still got Link in there. We're not because the joke last night you kept accidentally saying like the Legend or the Adventure of Zelda.
I kept saying The Adventure of Zelda instead of The Legend of Zelda.
I think you were mixing the Legend of Zelda and Adventure of Link, which is the second game.
And I kept mashing it together.
Yeah.
So I'm suggesting that the title of this cartoon be The Adventures of Zelda and Link.
Because you still get Zelda in there for the SEO, honestly, and
Yeah.
even just the name recognition.
Yeah. And just giving that little bit of a...
And if it had to, if marketing was really crabby about it, it could be The Legend of Zelda subtitle, The Adventures of Zelda and Link.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the Legend of Zelda, The Adventures of Zelda and Link.
Yeah.
Because
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. There we go.
Love it.
Now I can design the poster for it.
Oh, that's right. I get to see a Zelda poster that you make. I love it.
So, Monster of the Week with an overall narrative of this leading up to the appearance of the threat.
And I was thinking about this on the break. I would like to, if it doesn't come to be, if it doesn't happen naturally, I'm okay with it. But I would really like for Ganon to actually not show up until the end.
Absolutely, I would not. He would show up in the 13th episode, and
like no cutting to plot B of him getting ready with his things.
Yeah, we have no. He just like he's the threat that appears in the last episode of the season.
I also think for a kids show, it's technically scarier to have him be spoken about for the 12 episodes.
Yeah, and not even by name, right? It's the threat, like the thing that's coming, thing that's coming.
And maybe eventually there's a peppering of Ganon in there or something. The beast and then the whatever.
The beast.
The pig beast.
Yeah. Like talk about it in nightmare terms or it's scary, chased scary terms. But having like episode 6, like our midway points, having the first if our villain of that week, and maybe you could pick who this is, our 6th or 7th episode, like our halfway point, the villain of the week is a servant of Ganon.
There we go.
Like that's the first time I am a servant of Ganon.
Sure.
And it's like, what's a Ganon?
Yeah.
And like look to Sprite, and she's even like, I don't know what that is.
I don't know if I like this or not, but I want to throw it out there. We could do. There's many times in Zelda games where there's a interim villain that then ends up having a relationship with Ganon, and so that you still get the Ganon thing at the end.
Yes.
This could be one of those.
Yeah.
And we could do a first half of the season ramp up to that interim villain, which is our episode 6 or 7 or something, and then the bigger power is revealed or something. That's okay.
Something like that.
And the interim villain could be a little bit more feet to the ground, feet to the pavement, maybe actually affecting a couple towns in the area or something, that kind of thing.
Our first real threat,
I
think would be this interim villain, this midpoint villain who is a servant of Ganon.
Right.
The first time we hear the name would be from his lips.
But instead of smoke and clouds in the sky, it's like this town was wronged because of. You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I think so. I'm suggesting that while they might go into a dungeon and face a creature who has a piece of the Triforce and fight their way through some little creatures to get to that mini boss, this is the first time where they go into, even to the point of going into this fight and coming out of it in such a fashion where the king is finally like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is all this? This is my daughter. You shouldn't be handling this. Impa should be handling this.
Here we go.
And, yeah.
Here we go. That we use the king as a positive force here now. So the first 6 episodes, they're sneaking around. Okay, that's our impetus or whatever, and that also allows us to very quickly and easily communicate the relationship between the king and Zelda, like I said. However, how about here we go. Every monster of the week, every time the Triforce is collected, something rings, something tones. Zelda gets a vision when she touches it. Who knows? Maybe it's something like that.
Yeah.
and it is Link and Zelda are assuming and assigning it to this interim villain, which is fine, because maybe that interim villain has a name and is being talked about by some of the locals or whatever. However, I'm thinking about it. In our mid-season, break, our episode 6 or our episode 7, the interim villain, I guess I'll say, is defeated. I don't know, but the interim villain communicates to Link and Zelda like, "What? You think this is it?
You think, oh, you have no idea what's coming."
Yeah, whatever. And that's when, or it's even more vague. Interim villain says like, "But the powers that be will be blah 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 blah." And at that point, I'm trying to get Zelda back to her dad. I'm trying to get her back to her dad where he can say like, "I'm sorry, what happened?"
Yeah.
No, this is Ganon, or this is a thing that has been prophesized, the pig beast.
Yeah, this is what you've been preparing for.
Yes,
yeah.
I think this is what. So now we can take the dad, or the king, turn him into a supportive character now, which I think would be nice growth.
Yeah.
And he was maybe technically supportive the whole time, but now it's like, oh, this is actually, we're starting to get into some action, and now he might even like, okay, I really care about Zelda, and even a little bit of fear and trust and all of that. Like it's actually happening. I think this is the Ganon thing.
Where he actually knows the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And he knows it not because he's experienced a Ganon, but because he just knows it through the history and the prophecies.
Sure.
And probably our interim villain, we could do two things. We could trap them in a gem, maybe not actually proper defeat them, or they get sent to another thing. One of those. We do like a Marvel death or whatever.
They either get away or they can come back is essentially how they're defeated. I'd like to suggest this for that, because you had said something about every time she gets one of the pieces of the Triforce back, she gets some sort of a flash or a villain, or a vision. It for this episode 6 villain, when they must be using a piece of the Triforce. When they get it and she touches it, she doesn't get a vision.
Oh, I love this. This is weird.
And it's like, so either it's a fake piece of the Triforce, or it's not the Triforce of Wisdom. It's not a piece of the Triforce of Wisdom. It's if the assumption is,
say no to me when I say this, but I want to put it out there. The interim villain. I don't want to do Force Negator like you did with Star Wars 10,
fine.
even though I loved that. I loved what you guys did with your Star Wars 10. But could our villain actually be maybe the switch? Maybe the quote-unquote defeat of the episode 6 villain isn't defeat. It's realizing that villain's also trying to defeat Ganon. This is what I may want you to say no to. I might be doing a switcheroo can be a little tropey. But because she doesn't, when you said she doesn't get the vision, maybe it's because these are like one-off visions, and our interim villain got it.
Oh,
when they touched
that's an interesting thing that they like. It's a one and done. You get one shot at touching this piece of the Triforce to get the vision.
Now, maybe interim villain is a Sheikah or something like that, or something where it's not. Or it could be a different culture, a different race. It could. Well, if we're gonna go Zelda, if we're gonna go like proper Zelda, it should probably be like a Goron or a Zora or a Rito.
Yes,
or you know what I mean.
I love that for sure. I'd love to see the Gorons, the Zora. Like I would love to see those characters pop up in at least an episode or two.
I think it's too on the nose if it's a Bokoblin or a Bokoblin, like we were experimenting with in Zelda 3000. But it could be that, or it could be a humanoid character. I don't know. You have thoughts about this?
I like where you're going here. I think my idea of a Triforce piece not giving her a vision, we should put that in a different episode.
Interesting.
So that it's they think they're fighting a villain who, this would be a villain that's not, because we have to have those couple of episodes that aren't pieces that they collect, and it's a fake piece. So it's a different idea. So I'm taking we've defeated, we got the Triforce piece. This isn't a Triforce piece.
Yeah.
It's a Dorito.
I'm gonna try to yes and that. I counter propose. I'm trying to make it not be a no, but I counter propose that yes, the third Triforce doesn't trigger a memory, or the fourth one doesn't trigger memory. Maybe it is the Triforce, but she's like, something's wrong. Oh gosh, this interim villain is really no. Well, I was gonna say like maybe that interim villain already touched that one.
Right. I do like this idea that it's a one-shot only vision moment.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sort of kind of breaking these ideas apart, like a Triforce that's been broken.
Well, instead of just the one not working, if we do seed that a previous, number 3 or number 4 piece doesn't work,
like Zelda or Link gets it. Link touches it first and gets a vision of it.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's interesting.
What happened? Well, you touch it.
But what I'm going to here is if it's more than if this antagonist or protagonist that's happening in the middle of the show, if they have more than one vision in their memory, it does mean that our team needs to fingerprint together a little bit more to get the full story. See where I'm going with this? It gives that interim character a little more data or sustenance or value.
I'm going to take this idea again and separate it.
Let's do it.
Our fake villain Triforce piece. That's an episode 5, episode 4.
Okay.
The interim villain in the midpoint is a servant of Ganondorf villain. Like this is a big villain. They have to defeat it. That tips the king off to everything. I'm like glad you're excited. I want to take your idea of a hero character also on the same mission, and that's how I want to introduce someone like Impa or some other Zelda hero character from the lore, that they come across some other hero who's collecting pieces and trying to stop or fulfill the prophecy of sorts.
What if when Zelda and Link meet our interim character, our mid-season
baddie.
All right, this might be too much, but I love the idea that the vision. So maybe our interim person has touched one or two. Okay, fine. Zelda's got the other 3. Maybe even Link gets one, or maybe we save that for maybe that's a season. Maybe that's the 3rd arc of season 3 where Link grabs one or touches one, or doesn't even mean to. But the temples are getting more dangerous, and he actually gets one, and he gets a vision.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But what if when Link and Zelda meet up with our mid-season bad guy, the mid-season bad guy? That's how we avoid a fight too. That's how we avoid repeatable violence and all that stuff.
It's okay. It's 2023. We can repeat violence at this point.
Well, I mean, and I want to point this out too. Like, I was thinking about that, and Zelda games these days are rated teen. So that means theoretically, really it's PG-13. Zelda games are PG-13, which implies not everyone, which implies under 13 shouldn't play those games. That's a bit strict, but you know what I mean. Because Link is literally using swords. If Zelda were an E for everybody game, he would have to be using not swords.
Right.
We just know that.
Slingshot.
Right. So if this show, even if they're kids and it's for kids, I think we can lean away from it. I don't want to get into the weeds about that too much, because what I got really excited about is they meet our middle villain. I don't know if we have a name or whatever yet. The villain is defeated. Not literally, emotionally defeated. Just sitting there at the end of this temple, holding one of the triangles or one of the pieces of the Triforce.
Sure.
Link and Zelda, we spent 2 or 3 episodes telling our audience that they are got to ramp up for this baddie who's also grabbing the Triforce triangles. They get to him. This character doesn't want to fight. There's a conversation where the character, it just so happens that the vision into whatever the future is that they saw when they touched that triangle was Ganon betraying that person.
Right? All my hard work, I thought it would pay off.
Is this how it works? Is this the plan the whole time? I trusted him, all this stuff, which really makes it's broad strokes, but it makes it very easy for this character to now join the team a little bit.
To end up being a reluctant side hero.
A little bit.
Companion.
And maybe it is reluctant at first, and we build friendships there too.
Yeah, I like that. That's
is that okay?
That's great to build up this villain, the revelation of Ganon. Like if the beginning of the episode is like, I am a servant of Ganon, and you will, the destiny will be fulfilled, blah blah blah. And then when it's like, we're gonna have to fight and get to that point.
That character goes into Temple XYZ of the episode, and they get through the
and then in the end it's like
totally opposite of what they expected.
Fight. I think that's a great midpoint too. That's a fun subversion of the format we've created within the first 5 episodes. And then building up to Ganon proper at the end of the season.
The only thing I was worried about is having this interim character, which could be a Sheikah, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want it to become like a team show. I really that we keep focused on Link and Zelda.
It's just those two.
So maybe that interim character in the second half of the season has to zip, zap, zop out to other places to help, and then come back in the final episodes to bring the extra wand of whatever that they need. We could
Agreed.
Not write that character out, keep them, but put them in the periphery.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, this is not someone who joins the team. It says these 2 plus Sprite.
At least that's what I would prefer as we do this.
I agree.
Okay, cool.
It should maintain the status quo if we're looking in terms of television. Try to maintain that status quo of these 2 plus Sprite, these 3 characters for this season at least. And maybe in the second season we broaden it a little bit. I actually have an idea for season 2, but we'll get to that.
I feel like I brought a lot to this midpoint.
No.
What's going on in your brain right now? How are you feeling about any of this?
I'm feeling great. I think there's the format still works with Monster of the Week. Having this midpoint villain is great. A little thing for earlier. even the first episode when the Triforce gets broken and the king maybe is suspicious of like, what's going on? Like, nothing, Dad. And then moving on. A couple of instances in, so we'll say like the fourth piece that they get and put into place, the king is like finally like gets in the room where the Triforce is.
Interesting.
And it's more of a jokey little moment of like, Dad, okay, yeah, here it is. Don't get too close. Smaller than I remember it. But I guess I haven't seen it in a long time.
Like it's literally a small. It's only one triangle of the thing.
Yeah, it's like it's pieces of it missing. And
I'm fine with that.
So it's like dun 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 dun. Looks good. Smaller than I remember it. You're a good daughter, and then walk away like.
That's cute. I like
just
it.
like a cute little moment. Of that.
Yeah, I love it. And we could do a thing. We could reference. Okay, fine. I made fun of the fact that the Triforce is like on a podium in the original cartoon.
Yeah.
But like, those flipping Triforces are put in gems and on walls and floating. The Triforce is floating all the time.
Yeah,
let's just do it.
It's some sort of temple area that that the king does not frequent often. Because
TC, that's how the Triforce talks. It doesn't, but it's the visions.
Oh yeah,
that's how the Triforce talks.
Yeah,
maybe they're even slightly narrated, and that's the Triforce's voice.
When the flashes come, it's some sort of ethereal voice.
Yeah,
that we could then later end up being one of the.
Well, we got to make it Hylia. We have to make it Goddess Hylia because it's the wisdom of Triforce. Yeah,
you followed me right there.
I love it.
Eventually meeting Hylia. Season 2 or 3,
sure.
Like you're the one who's Zelda. Your destiny is becoming fulfilled, and so what? Name a couple monsters you'd like to see. Some dungeon monsters.
Gleok's a very popular one right now.
Oh,
it's a 3-headed dragon. It reappeared in Tears of the Kingdom. People are very excited about that. Gleok was originally a baddie in I think like the 4th dungeon of the original Zelda game. And let's see, what else do we have? I mean, I might have to even pull out the encyclopedia here for some of the main bad guys, because the one thing is something I think we could lean on is one of the things that people really, really enjoy about Zelda games is that, first of all, the dungeons are obviously mega puzzles. It's not just about finding the gem to put in the one thing. Usually it's pushing this thing changes that room over there, which changes the context of that other room over there, and you have to deduce all this stuff and put it together. And as a staple in a Zelda dungeon, somewhere halfway through the dungeon, an item is found that recontextualizes all the puzzles again.
Yeah.
Right?
Whether it's the hook shot or the boomerang or the arrow.
And that's literal active stuff. And then usually the boss, so basically it's first part of the dungeon is you're using the stuff you know. You see things you don't know. You acquire a tool that gives you the power to recontextualize the things you know. And so the second half of the dungeon is you training to use that item, and then the test is using that item usually on the boss one way.
Right. So
that's literal active things that are happening. I don't want to get too clever here, TC, but that could be slightly more metaphorical. I mean, there could be actions, like you find the boomerang, find the hook shot. But, maybe a lesson learned in the dungeon is a way to figure out how to swing around or Link and Zelda had to. You see where I'm going with this? I'm trying. Not lesson of the week either, but like
having a even if it's minor mystery or puzzle each episode that they have to solve.
What I'm trying to do is the player's experience of playing a Zelda dungeon has a lot of emotions to it and a lot of realization and a lot of outside of the game meta. The person playing, that's why people like these games. Get little epiphany moments and learn a little bit about themselves along the way as they play the game. So fine, maybe we can inject that into this a little bit. I think I'm getting off topic here a little bit because I got excited about that idea. But Monster of the Week, I know what it was. Yeah, okay. So the reason we could pick monsters, it could be new monsters as well, is that usually the monster is informed by the dungeon and the context of the area.
Right.
So, okay, fine. We could have the big plant monster. We could have certainly we got to have a Dodongo in there, like a big old, dinosaur Dodongo.
Yeah. Having Gorgons somehow involved, right? The rock eaters.
So there could usually Gorons do show up as bosses, and because Gorons are basically good guys, usually they have to be wearing like the evil helmet that possesses them, so they become a bad guy until you knock the helmet off, and then they're good again. Yeah, fine. We can do that kind of stuff. I want to think of some classics.
The whale that he has to go inside of to save
Jabu Jabu.
Yeah, Jabu Jabu. Yep.
Interesting.
I mean, that's it. An episode inside of a giant whale is kind of fun.
Yeah, and then also right, and that's one of the Leviathans, and then there's Jaboon, which is in Wind Waker, which is Jabu Jabu, but
Some of the...
I think the reason I'm hesitating is I don't know. I don't want to write it off, TC, but I don't know how important it is that they are specific baddies. Like, I think it's more like, do they feed the service of the dungeon, and do they feed the service of the narrative of that episode?
Certainly, yeah. Then it's just a matter of, like, we see a fire episode, we see a water episode,
I think it's more about that
episode. I said one episode I want to be, actually I have 2 episode pitches. One, I want to be the aliens, like, from having to deal with, like, a spooky episode because there's aliens.
Right.
That's not a Triforce episode. That would be a one-off episode.
And I think we learned in Majora's Mask that those aliens are actually even a weird version of, like, a ghost or something, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what they end up actually being.
So they explain aliens with ghosts.
Yes.
Now it makes sense.
Having an episode on Lon Lon Ranch and
yes.
Having Malin and Epona involved in somehow. Not that I think Epona should become his steed, even... Just having seen Epona in season 1 would be fun.
Yes.
Meeting Malin, going
and if they're younger,
they're young.
We have a young Epona.
A pony, and having characters like that, or the as an episode involved with Lon Lon Ranch, I just would like that.
I think that has to be one of the episodes that don't have a dungeon thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, but if we want to do, again, circling back to the baddies, to hit some of the high points, there's going to be a sentient large plant. That's going to be one of them.
Great.
One of the bad guys. That's probably going to be in the forest dungeon. It might even be the first one. Or you can do, like, the Gomas. Goma is realized differently, but it's kind of like a spider crab character.
Great.
I think we obviously have to have a Dodongo in there, but then there's going to be some watery big fish thing, not just Jabu Jabu, but, like, we'll probably need a little dragon.
Having
other staples are not sentient, but, like, automatons are common.
Oh yeah, like some sort of
robot thing that gets turned back on.
Some sort of magic user would be nice if we're out in the...
Well, if we're referencing, like, the version of a spirit temple or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Going up against Sheikah's... what's Impa's race called?
Well,
the desert people.
Oh, that's Gerudo.
Gerudo.
Yeah. And actually, I don't think Impa is Gerudo. I think she's Sheikah.
Okay.
Which is I get a little blurry if Sheikah is a race or if it is a culture. And maybe it doesn't really matter because I think the Sheikah still have the pointy ears that Hylians do, and they might be a culture inside the Hylian race. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, like, their blood might be Hylian, but their culture is Sheikah. I'm just repeating myself. Yeah, Gerudo. We have a desert thing.
I think a sailing episode where they have to, like, get out on... Not
That'd
like
be cute.
Like,
an
actually,
island. They go to an island.
Like an island sailing episode, different from, like, a water temple fish episode. Like, so there's 2... Those are separate from each other.
Yes.
That if there's an episode where they literally have to go underwater for the whole episode, and in, like, slow-moving water temple stuff.
Well, what we would do is we'd have some fun with the show here, and after they do our version of the water temple, which is probably episode 3 or episode 4, they'll receive the equivalent of a Zora's scale, which allows them to breathe underwater. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
Yes. I love that. Zora scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, you're
7,
literally
8,
laying
9,
it out
10.
here on the computer.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, it's as simple as a plant episode, a Dodongo episode, water temples.
But I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's as simple as that.
Because that's what Zelda games are.
Yep.
And it's, you can have your evil Deku Baba, and they're going to call it 3 different things in 3 different games, but it's the big evil plant.
I actually think we have our 13 episodes.
Interesting.
A festival village episode where they, like, are just in the village, and, like, maybe that could be a fetch quest episode where it's like, got to go to here to here to here to here to here to here to here. Like, if the whole episode is Link trying to do something for Zelda's birthday, like as cute as something like that, where she's so preoccupied with some duty of the princess, and he spends the whole episode trying to get her a present.
Yeah, sure.
And so then we just explore the village we explore the castle village and whatnot, the kingdom. Sorry.
No, I like that. That could be like a Castletown episode.
Yeah.
Or if we do have a a town off. The thing is that we kind of start in Castletown, so I don't know if maybe it is a different village, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Or they go back. They go back to the castle. I mean, maybe they go back every week. Maybe a few episodes they're out. Okay, do you know what we do? The first 3 dungeons, maybe it's episode 2, 3, and 4. That's all one arc, because that is our. If we are vaguely referencing the structure of a Zelda game, the first 3 dungeons are usually the first kind of point. That's kind of the first act.
Sure. So
then they go back to Castletown for episode 4, and maybe there's a little bit of that's when we get we get the dad joke, Triforce joke. We get they're back home basically, and Link learns that there's something special about Zelda. Maybe it's an anniversary, maybe it's a birthday, maybe it's the anniversary of her. I mean, we could go a little deeper with it. It could be the anniversary of her journey to finding her power, and there's a heartfelt thing that he finds in Castletown that helps her. Not recontextualize, but further feel comfortable with her process.
Give her more hope. Give her more strength to push forward. So
and maybe it's like a Sheikah mirror or whatever, or it's it could be the lens of truth. I mean, we could just kind of do it. Lens of truth, and then she sees that she's on the right path or something. Anyways.
Yeah. So like not exactly as clear cut as this, but some sort of sentient plant episode, Dodongo, Water Temple, Zora Scale, a little dragon, Gerudo Desert People, automatons, a spirit temple, Lon Lon Ranch, a sailing island episode, my fun spooky aliens episode.
I'm into it.
A volcano episode, a festival village episode, and then of course we all lead up to Ganon.
Yeah.
Now, as I just said it out loud, the Ganon attack could happen on a festival. That could be the.
It's where is it? I agree.
Yeah. That's okay. Good. We're sort of similar paged here.
Here we go, TC.
Yeah.
The festival episode does happen in Castletown. It's very heartfelt. I love the birthday trope. I'm leaning into trying to have it be something even more emotional, where it helps Zelda. It changes her view. Okay, fine. I said that already. Because if this is the penultimate episode, we feel like we've got it. Maybe we've got all the Triforce stuff, and we know where we're going here. But it does feel like the book chapter is about to close. But of course, we haven't had our final battle. Most of the time, Ganon does take over the castle. So it's not like one of the things in the existing cartoon in the '80s is Ganon has Ganon's lair, somewhere else, right? Well, I think we lean into Ganon taking over the castle, and we're
gonna end the Go ahead. Continue.
If penultimate episode is we're back in Castletown and Link goes around and we have a light adventure, and Link finds something that helps Zelda with her journey. As she gets that, we have some really nice character development, and we do a cliffhanger into the finale of Ganon coming out at the end of that. So that episode 12.
The finale is a 2-parter.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, I do too.
And then episode 13, it gets really real, and people are running and getting out of the town, and then it's figuring out what to do.
And Link and Zelda have to defeat this emergence of Ganon and chase him away.
Yeah, the castle. Let's have this castle rise up out of the ground. That's happened a couple times in Zelda games. Let's go all in.
But however this season ends, they defeat him but not destroy him.
We could probably different games have different terms for this, but send them back to the blah 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 realm.
Yeah,
send them back to the Twilight realm. Send them back to
underworld.
The sacred realm or something. Sometimes there are sages in Zelda games that give wisdom along the way, and sometimes that's also learned through.
Oh,
what's up?
In his festival episode where he's trying to he's just moving around the kingdom city, he comes into a temple area he's never been before and has an interaction with a sage that seems to him sort of like, what a weird, nice meeting you, weird lady.
It could be an old man named Raru or something.
And just like I know you are seeking things, and it's like, I was actually just looking for this brush. What are you talking about? Okay, nice meeting you, weirdo. A sharp viewer would go like, that was a sage.
Yeah.
Link, you idiot. That was very important information.
And also, here we go. Here's the item. Beginning of the episode 12, Zelda, this is not particularly elegant. Let me just say it this way. Speaks about the item she lost, the mirror, the hand brush, the thing that was special that when she was even younger or something.
My mother used to comb my hair.
There was a mother connection to it. Let's just go with hairbrush for now. I think we could find something a little bit more interesting. But then by accident in Castle Town, Link overhears what's his little trigger to start looking for it.
Right.
He just hears someone say something about a hairbrush. Okay, fine. And he goes around and goes around. But the long story short here is by the end of the episode, and maybe part of the sage is the one that gives him said hairbrush or lens of truth or whatever we want this item to be.
If we want to be cute about it, this old man keeps popping up. It's like, leave me alone. I'm trying to do a thing.
Yeah, let's keep an old man thread going. I think that's great.
Popping up like, hello again.
Yeah. No, I think that's all right.
Yeah. And then one who's like, you've been looking for this the whole time. You just didn't ask me.
It's dangerous to go alone.
Yeah, take this.
I love all that. And then I think what happens is, what we realize is the old man is maybe it's Rodri, maybe it's a sage, maybe whatever, gives the thing that we're calling a hairbrush right now to Link. But but where I'm trying to get to is, okay, this is so basic, but Zelda gets the hairbrush, and because of the new knowledge they've over the first 11 episodes, there's new context. They learn that the back of the hairbrush is a certain gem or thing that is the direct connection to Hylia or something like that.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
And it seemed like it was a simple hairbrush, but actually it was this really important thing that got stolen, and the sage, pretending to be just an old man in the town, knows that it's really important to get it back to Zelda, but also knows that Zelda needs to learn. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So we can take a fun, simple episode and really let it land at the end there too with something that really is important that leans into our big finale.
Particularly if this ends with like, I'm so happy to see getting a vision. It's like,
yeah, sure.
Zelda, it's time. The time has started. Ganon is coming, and then she comes out of it as a tremor begins.
Yeah.
And boom, this thing happens in the middle of right in front of the castle, the middle of the castle, and it's like, yeep. So that the 13th episode is action of like, there's this emerging threat.
I'm so sorry. All the cats are being fed by all the robots right now. I'm so sorry.
That's right. It was just surprised me. Anyway.
Did you hear it happen in both rooms?
Yeah,
anyway.
that's funny. David's headquarters here is very automated. So then our 13th episode is facing Ganon for the first time and defeating him with all the lessons and tools and tricks and toys that they've gathered over the episodes up to this point. And even getting a glimpse again from our midpoint villain who turned betrayer hero. Like, everything culminates here. And chasing Ganon away, but not destroying him. Like, this threat is real, and now it's just a matter of when will this attack happen again. Like, that's how the season ends.
I think so, yeah. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can write any, I'll say excuse, it's a little disrespectful, any excuse of him getting trapped in a thing anywhere. That's just...
I think that they don't contain him. I think he just is gone. Like, where did he go? We beat him, but he can come back. Like, this is bad.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's not they throw him in a gem or something.
I'll get you next time, Gadgets.
Yeah, it's
I'll get you next time, Gadgets.
But what... Yeah, I think it's more of a disappearance. So then if we're going to stick with that little joke, it's, will he get us next time?
Yeah. So then season 2. So if season 1 is these like series of adventures leading up to this, what a cute first season compared to the seasons that follow, which are much more active. This threat is real. Because I think in season 2 we can't have the Triforce break again, right? No.
And you mentioned that you might have a concept for season 2.
I have an idea for something in season 2, which I'll get to in a second.
Pardon me.
I think that, I suppose, going into season 2, it starts with the aftermath of this. Maybe not immediately, but essentially it's, Zelda, you can't be leaving the kingdom anymore. You can't be living in the castle. Like,
you saw how real this is, or something,
Dad,
right?
I know how real this is. I've already been facing this. You can't. So then it's a little more trying to protect I know we've been preparing you for this, but I didn't think it would happen so soon. A much more protective father.
Love it.
So then she has to be much more rebelliously active against his wishes.
And this is how we do it. The thing that's a hairbrush that's not really a hairbrush, we would find a much more elegant item.
Sure.
Channels Hylia. So part of the defeat of Ganon in episode 13 is with the aid of Hylia through this item.
Yeah.
Which allows us in season 2 for the dad to say things like, yeah, not you got lucky, but like I believe in you, I love you, but you definitely had assist. Hylia was able to help for whatever reason for that item, right? But you may not have that item next time or whatever. You see where I'm going with this?
Yes,
It's like, cool. That's how we keep our character not fully powered up,
There's still,
but they can still do a defeat at the end. They can still conquer at the end of season 1, but now they still need to grow. See where I'm going with this?
Yes, absolutely. There's still room.
Yeah.
There's still, this journey's not, you're not ready to face Ganon here. You still have to level up.
It's like the difference between using a lightsaber and using the Force or something, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I like that the father being more protective, you got lucky kind of thing, and her stubborn and be like, no. And we're developing Zelda a lot right now. Like Link himself is also a growing hero. I think it's telling that because we didn't make him this, because he's shy and he doesn't speak a lot, he's a man of action. A lot of the development happens over the course of just watching him be heroic, more and more and more heroic, and he's very consistently a hero.
Yeah.
So challenging him with these experiences and with these villains, and not just developing his friendship with Zelda, but also slowly developing relationships with the people.
Yes.
Because he's not just Zelda's protector, he's the protector of all of Hyrule as well. So his journey, I think, is just like, for example, Malin and Lon Ranch and talking to her is going to be difficult for him, but he makes a friend in the end. And
I like this.
Slowly just coming out of his shell, so that imagining if he gets a glimpse at one point in season 2, if he flashes on a glimpse on a future.
I do like him getting a glimpse in season 1. Anyway, keep going.
Well, okay, maybe even season, whatever his glimpse is,
Sure.
it's the fully adult badass Link, like
Interesting.
fully equipped hero,
Sure.
adult Link, and seeing himself like, even if only briefly, among the people, like truly comfortable being who he has to be, and knowing like his destiny is to.
I also love the meta strategy here of, in the early episodes, Link won't speak too much to help the audience get used to him. And part of his story journey is, so his Triforce is courage, fine. And I think we can very easily not show that he's afraid of some of these things, but knows he needs to do it. Fine, okay, he can have more courage. Okay, maybe it's not like courage to talk to people or courage to be social, but like we can have some growth there where he doesn't, it's not systemic, it's not calculated, but he does learn how to build these relationships, which in turn means he does start talking more and more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And we kind of can fade into it.
Having him, who is the princess that has a crush on him from the fish people?
Rudo.
Like,
Rudo.
Having an experience with her where she's just like, "Hi, you're so cute." And he's like, "Hi, oh boy."
Sure,
But then a second experience with her being a little more comfortable with how flirtatious she is.
And he's able to actively and healthily say thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a pitch for a season 2 episode. This is a singular episode of Link getting caught in a time loop, a Majora episode.
Well.
Yeah. That if he has some sort of brief mission, like if Sprite goes missing, and Zelda's like,
which is a reference to Navi leaving.
You have to go find her. There's some sort of whatever. He goes off into the woods, runs into the mask, goes to another village. Do a singular 22-minute episode that is the time loop of Majora's Mask. I'd love to see that happen.
A Groundhog's Day episode.
Yeah.
I love it. I think you got to have one of those then.
I
if
think
we're doing
that'd be
this,
great. It's like it's Zelda's only in the beginning of the episode. Like it's a fully Link episode. I think would be a lot of fun.
So that makes me think about in Ocarina, there's one of the dungeons that you have to in order to truly solve it, you need to travel back and forward in time. So you actually have to go all the way back to the Temple of Time and like come back as an adult and go back as a kid and go back and forth.
We can play with time travel, I think, in season 2 briefly. I'm suggesting a time loop just as a fun one-off.
Yeah,
episode.
a fun one-off. In fact, I think what I was thinking of would kind of break the show. I was starting to think like, what if he travels forward in time and can come back as the 14-year-old or the 17-year-old awesome Link and then fight Ganon? But that's not. I don't want to go that direction.
No. I think
super. What is it? Saiyan.
Super Saiyan Zelda.
Super Saiyan Link.
Link.
I don't think we need to do that.
No, but I do think that by having if we drop a time loop episode in season 2, the end of season 2, and we don't have to sit here and develop the full 3 seasons of this show, but if we're imagining 3 seasons,
sure,
the end of season 2 could be a time jump, like a time travel ending cliffhanger, to like seeing the destroyed Hyrule and Link being like, "My God, what has happened?" And that's your cliffhanger for season 2.
Yeah, I like that. I think we got a pretty solid season 1.
Yeah, like so backing up to season 1 specifically, having Triforce is broken, collecting those pieces, adventure, all to the revelation of Ganon.
I think we already said it's animated. I think that's perfectly great and fine.
I would prefer a 2D animated show as opposed to a 3D animated show.
Fascinating. Or would it be like a little, even 2D shows are kind of like 2.5D these days.
Exactly.
Where you get some of that. But I agree.
I don't want it to look like the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Got it.
It's the fully CG 3D.
And I don't want it to look like a Flash animation website.
No.
Because some of that cheap 2D animation these days.
Yeah, again, I'll point to Avatar: The Last Airbender or Over the Garden Wall, which is this beautiful blend of two-dimensional art in 3D spaces.
3D spaces, because that's the one thing I was thinking is, like, these dungeons are as much of characters in Zelda games and hopefully the show as well, that versions of it being realized, the geography of these dungeons can be very important.
Yeah.
So if it was, not that we need helicopter shots or drone shots of going through them, but if that geography could be consistent, that'd be very cool.
Of course. I'd love that.
Instead of just like the standard Scooby-Doo background, right?
Yeah. If done correctly, if this was a truly successful season of a show, 13 episodes, then Nintendo would want to develop a game based on our show. Here's my call to action that I want to throw out there to those listening. We basically have written the show Bible, and now it's like, well, hey, now that you know the structure of season 1, what's your episode? What's the episode you want to... Is there someone listening right now that's like, oh, I got the sailing episode. I know what we're going to... I'd love to pitch. And so opening up the writer's room to pitches for our season 1 structure.
Love it.
I would love to see what people, especially your listeners who are going to come from a much more knowledgeable place than me in terms of Zelda lore and what to do and not do with Link, which creatures and villains you want to see pop up in this thing. I think, there's some... This is fun. This feels like a loving homage to what this cartoon should be, and not...
We did address... were there a couple of specific demands, like the whole, like, he needs to say excuse me again, but a different thing?
Yeah.
I love it. You kind of did it in the beginning of the episode, but it's one of those things... Maybe, okay, TC, it could be a little moment. I don't know where it happens in the season, but it could be a growth moment for Link, where, oh boy, would we really... that would be a fun way to recontextualize it. I'm sorry, I'm not making my point. Zelda is speaking to, in a very important situation... I don't know if she's speaking to other royalty or to sages or to townsfolk or whatever, but there's a situation, and he's behind her, supporting her, and he kind of knows something or he needs to do something, and he has to... he interjects. Excuse me, princess.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah,
I love
right?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it... And also, we could make it a little bit more special by having that be a moment where he has social courage to say what he needs to say.
Yeah. Utilizing that very cheesy catchphrase and contextualizing it much more sweetly into what Link... Excuse me, princess?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me, princess!
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you could throw one of those in for fun, too, where you change the punctuation and it still works. Yeah, that'd be great.
Sprite's like... he's like, excuse me, princess!
I mean, or you gotta... Or we like go real cheese factor, and in the Castletown episode, he bumps into someone, excuse me, and then, princess?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Just finding a way to just do that line.
Maybe throw one or two of them in there. That would be kind of cute. And what else? We had to have Sprite in there in some of these demands. We did that.
I'm actually just going to back up from Josh and Edward. In the festival episode, at some point, it'd be fun if it was like, if he passes a stage, if there's like a traveling show that's like, live from Hyrule, it's Twilight Nights.
Oh, okay. Oh, because they have to say it or whatever? Or, we reverse the request.
There's your skit variety show
Yeah.
in the world, in the universe of the world.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I'm into that.
So let's see.
Twilight Nights.
It's Twilight Nights.
It would be at a milk bar.
Oh, yes. Keep Ganon talking. Yep. Talking Triforce. Yep. Excuse me, princess. There you go.
Do we have Ganon talking enough?
I mean, even if he just shows up and is like, I have risen. Like, he doesn't need to be the full...
And he would be pig form or whatever. Yeah.
And then looking at Lex, she also said pretty much the same. 13 episodes. It doesn't have to be a specific game continuity. Sprite, Ganon, the King as characters.
Oh, we did it.
Yep. There we go.
And I want to watch this show. I never thought I'd say that sentence.
Well, I would hope you'd want to watch this show,
Yeah.
not the old one.
Well, one of the fun journeys through these crossovers that you and I have been doing for the past 4 years is, I think when we did the very first one, within the first 5 minutes of the episode, I think we were saying like, okay, how do we make a Zelda movie? And honestly, my thing was like, we shouldn't.
Yeah.
There should not be a Zelda movie.
True.
There should not be a Zelda TV show. There should not be these things.
I agree to live action. I personally never want to see a Hollywood-produced live-action Legend of Zelda.
Interesting, yeah.
And this goes all the way to silent protagonist. That first episode I did, because it's important. It feels important to me that Link does not have a voice. And doing live action, unless you make him deaf, which would be cool to have Link be signing everything, so he literally doesn't have a voice, a voice that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a cartoon,
A corporeal voice? I don't even know. But anyway.
a cartoon feels much safer in terms of like the what mistakes could and could not be made, so, especially giving it into the right people's hands, whether that's in this fantasy world us or other people who love Zelda. And I think with the success of Super Mario Brothers movie, which made $1 billion,
Yes.
Nintendo is probably having conversations about other properties.
They've spoken to that. They've talked about how it's not exactly connected universe, but they've already got the Donkey Kong ride happening at the different Universal Studios.
Yeah.
They're leaning into that. They've already introduced Donkey Kong. There's a reason why the Donkey Kong model in the Mario movie is new, and I think it's for IP. They can move forward with that one, and they don't have to use the Donkey Kong model that Rare used, because Nintendo doesn't have a relationship with Rare anymore. Even though Nintendo owns that model, I think they're just moving forward.
Just being safe with it.
Yeah. And secondly, they've been very clear about talking about how other Nintendo universes would and could connect with this stuff. And also, there are, some of it is rumor, some of it is a little bit more conclusive. There is chatter. I'll just say chatter. I don't want to about like Zelda zones and lands in some of the Nintendo World stuff.
Yeah. Oh, in the Nintendo World, like
in the theme parks.
That's interesting. Well, what I'd love to do as we wrap up here, and we'll go into bonus content, is discuss some of those other IPs.
You live over in California. Have you ever been to Oh no, that's Florida. I'm sorry.
I've been
Universal.
I've been to Super Mario World in the Super Nintendo World in California.
And they don't have the Donkey Kong expansion there yet,
no,
right? They're building it right now.
They have the Mario Kart ride.
The Mario Kart ride, yeah, I got it.
And
okay,
it's to speak briefly on that, it is the most immersive land at Universal Studios.
Fascinating.
One of the issues that I take with Universal Studios in comparison to Disneyland, Disneyland is full immersion. When you're in Fantasyland, you can't see Tomorrowland. You can't see Frontierland. You cannot see anything else. You are fully immersed. When you go to Batuu, when you're in Star Wars Land, you are there.
Right.
In Universal Studios, the way that property is structured,
it's like on a hill, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just because they decades ago sold off land and there's whatever have you. You're in Harry Potter Land and you can see The Simpsons.
Oh, I see.
You're with Minions and you can see The Mummy. You're at Transformers, you can see Jurassic Park. It's not full immersion.
Got it.
However, Nintendo Land is. You go through a warp pipe and you are in Super Mario World.
Yeah.
And you cannot see or experience anything else. You are 100% immersed. And it's very, very cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
I couldn't help but cheese out as I'm walking through here and seeing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm here.
For me, experiencing in Super Nintendo World hopefully will be a couple years from now, and it might be that Epic Universe park that they're building down in Florida right now.
Yeah, and Florida, way more property to play with. California is very restrictive.
Yeah, that's true. And that's we're starting a whole nother show, a whole nother episode for a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
Theme park podcast. That's the next thing we make. But,
well, let's.
But I think okay. So anyway, Nintendo being interested in okay, fine. Yeah, that's a whole conversation to be had about. Yeah. Nintendo being more comfortable with bringing their franchises to things that aren't games.
To rope it back to Zelda specifically, I do stand by animated would be the way to go. It feels safer, it feels better.
Thank you for saying that. It reminds me that a minute or two ago, the thought process I had was, one thing that I'm grateful for in these 4 years of us doing this is that, not to toot our own horns, but like, we have found a couple ways where maybe it could be done in an interesting way, you know.
I'd like to think so.
Just for me to accidentally a few minutes ago say like I want to watch this TV show, I would not have said that 4 years ago.
No, I agree. And as I spoke earlier with like Zelda 3000, we didn't speak much on our multiverse that we had done last season.
Right.
But yeah, there's so much fun to be had here if done lovingly and with respect. And I think that's something that is lost sometimes when IPs are developed into Hollywood productions.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the time, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I think we've come up with some, at least the listeners seem to have responded kindly to our ideas that we've thrown out there. And I'm interested to hear what people think of this cartoon that we've just crafted right here.
Yeah.
What do you think of my pitches on tone and style with some of the other cartoons I've referenced? And I want to know what your villains are, or what's your episode pitch?
Yeah.
Tell me, using some of these.
We've got the structure.
Yeah. What do you want to see in this?
What's the
series?
Spirit Temple one? What's the Death Mountain one? What's the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like so, for example, you said earlier. I know we're getting out of here, but you know, like what's our Water Temple episode?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it needs to be the Water Temple from Ocarina of Time. I don't think it needs to be the Water Temple from Twilight Princess. But as long as while they're in that temple, they hit something here that moves water there, that changes how a different door works.
Yes.
Like then it's a water temple. We've done it. You know what I mean? Like you got to like find the principles of the stuff. You know,
Exactly.
The forest temple one probably needs to have the sentient plant at the end, and you know probably has some vines in it or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's certain things that like I think maybe there's a few monkeys, but I know I'm getting a little too deep into it. But you see what I'm saying about the water temple? It is a new water temple.
Exactly.
I do like that we chose to have this, well, be a legend.
Exactly.
Actually.
It's its own continuity and fun to be had within that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's wrap up here, and we'll continue our conversation after the episode ends here. But I think that's going to do it for the episode and for this season 4 of Studio Demands It. I'm so glad we got this crossover in.
Yes.
I am a completist, as we spoke of earlier.
I'm very grateful for you traveling to the Midwest to do this, TC. Thank you.
Logan, Lex, did we meet your demands today? You got to hit us up to let us know. You can find me specifically. You can find me on Instagram, TC's Big Head. David, where can people reach out to you?
I'm Raptor Paint on all the socials.
Great.
Literally just the words Raptor Paint, no underscores, nothing. It's a deep cut from years ago, and I'm going with it. I thought I was accidentally doing an AZP outro.
You can message us directly at studiodemandsit.com on the site formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Studio Demands It. If you're not already, please, you can subscribe to us in any podcatcher of your choice. And if you feel like giving us a little 5-star review, that does help us. You can do that in-app, and it gets us out there into the algorithm.
There's 2 new things, TC, that I'd like to add to that.
Oh, please do.
In Apple Podcasts, leaving reviews to shows and 5-star reviews, you know, whatever, but like literally leaving a couple comments is one of the best ways to pull the show up higher in the algorithm that finds the shows.
Yeah.
You know, so when you scroll to the bottom of a certain podcast in Apple Podcasts, and it's like, you might also like these things. It'll increase that. So if people enjoy Studio Demands It,
please, yeah.
the reviews are so important.
A brief review, even if it's just what you had for lunch today.
We had an AZP person just give us like 20 green star or green heart emojis as the review.
There we go.
Loved
I love it.
Beautiful. And then secondly, a slightly new development has happened with Spotify. You can now actually leave comments and reviews per episode on Spotify.
Beautiful.
And so that also, even if you want to go to Spotify and in the comments of this episode put some of your ideas
Please
in there. The only trick is that we have to go into Spotify and like approve them to turn them on. But it also, that is the way to help the Spotify algorithm.
Thank you for that.
Commenting on the episodes.
Yes, please do. Thank you so much for that. That's a lovely new feature. You can also find us on YouTube and TikTok, where we post video content that's not included here on the show. As I said, you can find me on Instagram. Jim exists through me as well. So, and last but not least, if you are into this sort of thing, we have a Patreon for a couple bucks a month. You can get episodes early. We have extended double-length episodes.
Oh gosh, yes.
We have movie commentary tracks. In fact, the conversation that will be available through Patreon that we're about to have here will be a conversation about some of the other Nintendo IPs that I think would be worth exploring in movies, TV shows, and other content. So, a massive thank you to you, David, and 6.5 Media for everything you do for us. Please check out the other 6.5 shows. Tell me about AZP real quick.
Some of the AZP, Another Zelda Podcast, is a show that we've been making for 6 seasons now. We're about halfway through our 6th season. I one fun little, we just talk about it. It's an evergreen show. Talk about everything Zelda. Sometimes we make top 10 lists. Sometimes we do deep dives. Sometimes we do favorites. Sometimes we do reviews of the games. An interesting thing has happened in season 6 here, TC. We put out a proper casting call here in Chicago and acquired a new cast member for Another Zelda Podcast. And many of my blog writers come on the show and are part of the conversation.
Yes.
But we kind of have, for the first time in many years, an official new cast member on the show.
Great.
Her name's Katie Roberts. And something really spectacular has happened. Katie is more than 2 decades younger than me.
Wow.
All right? And Katie found Zelda through Breath of the Wild. And now Katie is experiencing the Zelda franchise basically going backwards. She's digging into the catalog.
Oh, so now would be a good time for like new listeners to jump on because you'd be experiencing
Her point of view.
from her point of view. That's
Yes.
exciting.
So if you found Zelda through Breath of the Wild, Katie even by accident, has that voice. And also it's helping us re-explore some of the old games. So, 3 years ago, one of my other co-hosts and I did an episode on Ocarina of Time. Well, guess what? We're doing another Ocarina of Time episode in season 7 because it's going to be from this new perspective.
That's exciting.
From like a new Zelda player. So that's really cool. So if people are interested, you can always listen to our backlogs, but you can find us at anotherzeldapodcast.com is our website. And that's that. The only other thing I'd like to talk about is just my other podcast, Returning Student, that I'm very, very passionate about. And it's about my return to going back to college after 20 years of not being in college. And that's that. That's all I'll say.
You might have had an even commercial in this.
It probably was a
maybe,
commercial.
Maybe not, but
it was probably
yeah.
me being like, it's the first day of school and blah blah blah
Oh
blah blah.
God, it's so good. Like it's a documentary. It's a narrative documentary of your return. It's interviews and sound design and score and introspective looks at your journey. It's very, very cool. It's got a unique quality to
I'm
it.
tremendously proud of Another Zelda Podcast and what that has become and what it always has been. But if there is a podcast that speaks to my legacy over my life, it's Returning Student. I'm very passionate about it.
Well, I hope people check it out, and I hope that some of your AZB friends stick around and check out some of their episodes.
They always do.
And
we know it from the analytics.
That's right. And last but not least, the finale is coming. One last tease for that. Mystery Inc. and the Threshold of Chaos is coming soon. A full feature-length production, audio drama that we are very excited to share with all of you to wrap up season 4. But that does it for this episode. We will be back again soon with another one of your demands to challenge ourselves to improve the world of cinema and TV and games. I'm TC.
I'm David Geisler.
And that's the end of the show.